Thanks for being here this morning. It's the Mike Broomhead Show. Joining me in studio right now, United States Senator John McCain. Senator McCain, thank you for being here this morning.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on. These are very interesting times.
Yeah, we were. I couldn't wait for that. I was watching the clock. There's so many questions to ask you. I guess first and foremost, the cap and trade, the energy bill, cap and tax, whatever you want to call it, that passed the House and barely. What are the prospects of this getting out of the Senate?
Well, certainly in its present form, which is cap and tax, which is 1,300 pages. You know, John Boehner, the Republican leader, on Friday read the 300 additional pages that they had just added onto it as the bill went to the floor. I cannot imagine a legislation that's a grab bag of goodies for literally enough members of Congress to, the bazaar was open. They said, what do you want? How can we buy your vote? And they got it. But it's really terrible because I believe that climate change is real. I think that it is something that we need to address. I think we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm sure that a lot of Americans do. But to do a bill like this, it started out with the president saying that in his budget that would have revenues of $643 billion. So really what they're using is cap and trade, quote, cap and trade, to raise billions of dollars so that they can spend money on cash for clunkers and, buying General Motors and Chrysler and banks and the world's largest insurance company. So it started out on the wrong path, and now it's just turned into, it's laws and sausages at its worst, in my view.
And we're hearing, there's a lot of the Democrats are upset. There was a Democrat quoted from Mississippi in the House that was upset because there were Democrats that were forced, he said, if they're, as he put it, forced to walk the plank on a bill that has no chance of passing the United States Senate, and which is good news to me that it probably wouldn't get out of the Senate. But do you see a scenario where there's enough changes where this could actually get through? We're going to end up with cap and trade.
Elections have consequences. My worry would be that they pass a bill in the Senate which gets enough votes by picking off 2 or 3 or 4 Republicans, and then they go to conference between the two. And then, of course, and how it comes out. Look, this is what's happening on health care. This is what's happened on the stimulus package. This is what's happening. But look, they have the votes. They have the votes. They won 2 elections in a row. But I think the American people are getting sick and tired of it. The president's popularity and approval ratings are still high. But when you look at the underlying numbers on things such as cap and trade, spending, the out-of-control growth of government, all of those kinds of things, Americans are becoming very, very concerned and are not in sync with the president, the administration. Look, America's a right-of-center nation. This is a far-left economically and physically administration, and it's Americans are becoming aware of the problem.
Now, you mentioned health care, and it's interesting. We're doing some stories on the health care agenda, and one of the sticking points was now they're talking about raising taxes or taxing employer-provided or insurance benefits from employers as a means of paying for some of these health care things, which I know was something you talked about during the election. But what I find fascinating in this form of it is that the unions are screaming out, and they're saying that they may exempt some of the unions from actually paying the tax. I mean, how does this work behind the scenes where this actually happens?
Because the unions have gotten these most generous health insurance policies, so they want to exempt them. The unions are running a lot of this administration. Look at what we just did with Chrysler and General Motors. We gave 2 automotive companies to the federal government and the UAW, the United Auto Workers. My proposal during the campaign was to take away the tax-free status of employer-provided health benefits, but also, and most importantly, give every family in America a $5,000 refundable tax credit so they could go across state lines and get the health insurance that they wanted. By going across state lines, by having competition, American families would be better off with the average American family would be better off with a $5,000 refundable tax credit, particularly small business people. than having the employer provided health benefits, which are tax free. By the way, that was as a result of World War II when we had price and wage controls, and that's the only way they could reward workers. But let me tell you what this really coming down to, Mike, real quick. You know, you hear about all of these different aspects of it. Whether we will have a government-run health insurance program which will eventually crowd out private health insurance in America, and whether the employer will be required, mandated by government, to provide a health insurance for all their employees. Go out and tell that to the small business person today who's hurting so badly here in Phoenix.
I'm one of them.
We're really, I'm telling you, Mike, these are really the key elements, and they want a, quote, government. Look, if you got a government-run insurance and it doesn't health insurance, and it doesn't have any advantage over private insurers, then you got 1,301 health insurance companies in America. But if you do it like they want to do it, you're going to crowd out the private insurance companies in America. And now the other one is, will an employer be mandated by government to provide a certain level of health insurance to their employees? The Obama plan in the campaign was that if they didn't, then they would be required to pay a, quote, they didn't use the word fine, but they'd have to pay
a fine.
The federal government. And if it was too high, they'd have to lay off employees. This is why they won't describe their plan. And if it's too low, of course, they pay the fine and go on. So all of the smoke and mirrors that you're seeing going on in Washington and all these meetings, and I'm on this committee that's reviewing the plan, they had a body blow last week when the Congressional Budget Office showed that the Kennedy plan would cost over $1 trillion and only insure 1/3 of the uninsured in America. Do the math. That's $3 trillion that it would cost. Now they're flailing around to try to make that better.
Now you're going to be doing a town hall on health care.
Yes, at the Phoenix Children's Hospital on Wednesday at noon, and we're going to have healthcare providers, insurers, average citizens, doctors, others there, so we can educate the American people. The healthcare system in America has become incredibly complex. Average Americans don't understand it. In fact, there's some of it, I'll tell you, it's so complicated, some of it I don't have a complete understanding of. And these town hall meetings help me. But it really gets down to, is government going to take over health care in America, insurance in America, or will the employers be mandated to provide that to their employees? We all know health care has to be affordable and available in America, and we got to fix it. But to fix it with a big government solution, in my view, it would be a terrible mistake. And in England and in Canada and other countries where they have government-run systems, they have health care rationing. Any of our listeners that doesn't believe that, I'd be glad to provide you with that information.
Now, I want to shift very quick. We've got Iran, North Korea. Now, you took a lot of heat over the Iranians. You took a lot of heat. And our president has been largely silent on Iran, but recently has had some strong words. Ahmadinejad has come back now with said he's got a crushing reply for the United States, and they've accused us of meddling. They've now taken into custody some of the Brits on staff there in Iran. And I know that you've proposed something about television and internet into Iran so we can keep the word of freedom in there. Talk to me a little bit about what you think needs to be done and why we're not hearing more from the White House on this.
Well, as you know, the president campaigned that he wanted to sit down with the Iranians, with Ahmadinejad, and have a good dialogue, and therefore they would then, because they liked one another, they would be able to come up with an agreement. We know the nature of this regime. I talked about it during the campaign, including this regime in Iran's dedication to the extinction of the state of Israel. So what happened with this corrupt election was that turned upside down all of the president's commitments to sit down and talk to the Iranians. How can you do that when they're killing and beating people in the streets of their major cities? And this Neda, the young woman, the film we saw of her bleeding to death, was so what has happened? Then the president, and you're right, I was, the attacks on me for not being
politically correct.
Yeah, there you go. But then the president obviously had to come out and has, and I'm glad he did, and I appreciate the fact that he did come out and condemn this. But the point is that these people are bad people. They're a bad regime, and they have now shown that to the world. But it's also fundamentally changed Iran. I believe that this show of defiance and courage on the part of the Iranian people will eventually lead to the overthrow of these radical Muslim clerics who are running that country, and we should support them with an outlet called FARDA, which FARDA, which is like Radio Free Europe. It's beamed right into Iran. We should do everything we can to try to provide them with tools to unblock the internet, Twitter, Facebook, all the means of communication that these young people who were leading the revolution, by the way, a good portion of it was young women, to allow them to be able to, one, know that they have our courage and our support, and also to allow them to better communicate with one another. There's a whole variety of ways that we can fund democracy, leading institutions, and other things we can do to show our moral support. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not for armed invasion. I'm not for anything. But I would remind you that Ronald Reagan supported the workers in Poland. He supported the Czechs in the Prague Spring, and when the Berlin Wall went down, they all said, and the liberals at that time said, "Oh, don't do it. You'll upset the Russians. You'll upset our
World War III. He's a cowboy."
Yeah, Western cowboy. And guess what? After it was over, they're behind the Iron Curtain. They said, "You are our beacon of hope and freedom." That's what we are for the Iranian people. They deserve our moral support.
Do you think part of this, that part of the Iranian people's desire for freedom is they look at Iraq now and they see a prosperous society, they see a society that's self-governed. It's not freedom like you and I see freedom, but it's something that the Iranian people don't have, and now that they see this in their neighbors, and they want the same thing for their own people.
I'm entertained that some of this is attributed to a speech in Cairo by the president, and maybe some people were inspired by that. I hope maybe they were. But the point is, right on their border is a functioning democracy. It doesn't function well. It took a long time for the United States of America to have a functioning democracy as we know it. But the fact is that it's the Iraqi example, I think, that is motivating a lot of young Iranians. They want the same thing.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back from the break, I'd like to ask you about the latest in the rounds of threats and rantings from the North Koreans, and I definitely want to get your opinion on what needs to be done there and what you see happening in the future. We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for being here in studio with me, United States Senator John McCain. This is the Mike Broomhead Show. As we now, the other thing I need to ask you about is the North.
Could I mention one thing?
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Of local state importance.
No, go ahead.
Today I'm going up to Superior. The Resolution Copper people are willing to invest over $1 billion in a mine, which is the richest copper deposit in the world. And John Kyle and I are trying to get this thing done. We've had hearings, and frankly, the administration is blocking it.
Why is that?
I would guess it's the opposition of the extreme environmental organizations, but this would provide hundreds and hundreds of jobs. As I say, they're ready to invest billions of dollars. It's capable of producing 20% of U.S. copper. It'll create 2,600 jobs, and here we are being held up by the administration, by the BLM. It involves a land exchange. It's a little complicated, but it's just outrageous that we're being held up like this. So I'm going up to Superior today and talk to the local people, and the Indian tribes are opposed to it and some others, but it would be a shame if we didn't get this land exchange done. And by the way, the land that's being exchanged is very environmentally sensitive, which would be conveyed to the federal government. But anyway, I know you wanted to talk about North Korea.
Yeah, I'm glad you told that. I'm sure the people of Superior, I mean, this is something in our state, if there's one thing we need to do is get out of being beholden to the construction industry like we are and get some other industry, and $1 billion investment would go a long way for jobs here. But I did want to ask you about the North Koreans, because it seems like every day they are ramping up the rhetoric against the United States. They say they're threatening to shoot down Japanese planes, but they've also said that the United States is plotting a preemptive nuclear strike as a means maybe to attack us first. Is there any possibility that they're actually going to do this, or are they just blustering?
Probably not going to do it, but if they had the capability, which they are developing, it could be far more dangerous. Look, they're period of transition. This is the most repressive regime in the world. The Chinese are not helping. The Chinese are the key to this. After this last activity of the North Koreans, the Security Council passed a resolution. We have a ship, the USS John S. McCain, actually shadowing this ship, and they say that we should ask them to board. But if they refuse, we can't board, even if they think that they're carrying missiles or equipment or technology that would help themselves and other countries develop nuclear weapons. The Israelis bombed a Syrian reactor, which was done with North Korean help. It is a fact that North Korea and Iran are working together on nuclear proliferation. So what does the UN Security Council resolution say? If they think there's a ship carrying this stuff, you can ask them to stop. They don't stop. They go into a port. Then they expect the people in the port to inspect them. Do you know where the ship is headed? Myanmar. I mean, you can't make it up. And if they refuse, guess what the action then is? Go back to the UN Security Council, where I'm sure Russia and China will be extremely helpful. It's a farce. So I think the North Koreans don't think we're serious. And by the way, the Bush administration made the same mistake that Clinton did by trying to give these people all these carrots and no stick. And we're paying a heavy price for it. And finally, right now, there's a transition between the dear leader and whatever they call the next leader, his 26-year-old son, and they're trying to consolidate power. The Chinese are actually helping the North Koreans with their economy. And the fact that they're not weighing in on this is very short-sighted of the Chinese, but also shows our true relationship with them. If the North Koreans prove this nuclear capability and the missile, which they have, but the missile capability to deliver it, the other countries in the region have no choice but to develop nuclear weapons themselves.
Well, as always, I appreciate the information when you come in. I hope you'll come back when you're in town. Now, Wednesday, if people want to go to this town hall on healthcare Wednesday at noon, can the public go? Do they need to reserve seats, or can they just show up?
I think if they just call up, and we'll be able to get them there.
But get in touch with your office.
Call
okay.
our office, yeah.
All right. Now, I mean, now more than ever, people need to be educated on what this healthcare bill is and what's coming down the pike, and what a reasonable alternative is. And I'm glad you're going to be doing this.
And the month of July, because we'll be going out the first week in August into recess. The month of July will be the critical time as to whether we beat back this government effort to have the government take over healthcare in America or not. July will be the time. I know that people are on vacation, enjoying themselves and all that. Look, get briefed up on this issue, because it can affect the future of this country and the kind of health care that our citizens will have for a long, long time.
I know, and whether it's cap and trade or it's health care or what, all of these different things that are going on. Now, these are important days for us to be involved. Contact your senators' offices. I'm sure you're thrilled to have me say this all the time. Contact your senators. Contact your congressmen. And let's make sure that we know what the reasonable alternatives to these things are. It's time to beat it back. Thanks for being here. We're back tomorrow. God bless.
Don't miss Sleep America's 4th of July sale. Check out the 3 ways to save, including queen sets starting as low as $2.99.
KFYI Phoenix.
KNIX-FM HD2 Phoenix.
The bottom line is this. I've been unfaithful to my wife.
This legislation will finally make clean energy the profitable kind of energy.
Lower income people will benefit from this bill.
One car of the train almost squeezed completely together.
This is the final curtain call.
He's not breathing, and we're trying to pump him.
Okay. Your news for Monday, June 29th, 2009 starts now.
The decision is in. This is the 8 o'clock news on 550 KFYI. The Supreme Court ruling this morning that white firefighters in New Haven, Connecticut were unfairly denied promotions because of their race. That reverses a decision that High Court nominee Sonia Sotomayor endorsed as an appeals court judge. In a 5-4 decision, the justices said that New Haven was wrong to scrap a promotion exam because no African Americans and only 2 Hispanic firefighters were likely to be made lieutenants or captains based on the results. The city said that it acted to avoid a lawsuit from minorities. In 2 other decisions today, the court did not decide whether an anti-Hillary movie should be regulated as a campaign ad, and said that state attorneys general cannot issue their own subpoenas in investigations against national banks. Bernard Madoff has another day in court. The sentencing hearing, his attorney says Madoff will speak to the pain that he has caused through his multi-billion-dollar swindle. Prosecutors are asking for 150 years, but Madoff's lawyer insists 12 years would be enough. He's 71. It's Justice David Souter's last day on the Supreme Court. And social service agencies are waiting to see what impact a compromised state budget will have.
Agencies which provide services for children expect to have to do more with less. Dana Neymark, president of Children's Action Alliance, says the compromise worked out last week is better than the GOP budget passed earlier this month.
The legislature, with the governor's leadership, certainly moved in the right direction on kids' care, health coverage for children and working families, and we're very pleased to see that the children's coverage will remain where it is today.
But Neymark says there are still extensive cuts to services affecting kids and families, and she calls many of the budget revenue assumptions fictional. Bob Bennett, KFYI News.
Starting Wednesday, it's going to cost you more to ride a Valley Metro bus or light rail.
Our base fare of $1.25 has not increased since 1994.
But Valley Metro's Susan Tierney says their costs keep going up. So in order to keep up with the requirement that the transit system get at least 25% of its revenue from the fare box, they're raising the cost of a single ride to $1.75.
And if you're going to buy an all-day pass, that's $3.50 if you buy the pass ahead of time.
Such as at a participating retailer or online or at a light rail station vending machine. Otherwise, if you wait to buy it on the bus, an all-day pass will be $5.25. Get more details at KFYI.com under local news. Ted Houston, KFYI News.
A coroner's office in Tampa, Florida says it expects to complete an autopsy on television pitchman Billy Mays by this afternoon. His wife found him unconscious yesterday morning. He had told a local television station that he had been hit on the head during a rough landing at Tampa's airport on Saturday. Check on your money with the Wall Street Journal. The Dow is up 80 points, NASDAQ up by 7. 5:15 KFYI's East Side West Side traffic this morning with Joe Corral and Ed Hambers.
Thanks, Joe. This is brought to you by the Leukemia Society. Westbound 10, we've got the caution flag out. Accident off to the right near Baseline. Delays all the way back to about Ray. Also, your northbound 101, not a lot better. You've got volume from basically Warner up to the 202. 202 Red Mountain Freeway, clogged on the westbound side. Parking lot style, Country Club to Alma School. From there, it's going to be slow and go in through McClintock. You've also got slowing. This is going to be working on the 60, a little bit westbound at the 101. Joe's on the west side.
And that eastbound 101, Ed, with a collision at the Cave Creek on-ramp, slowing all the way back to the 17. Southbound 17, slowing approaching the Loop 101. More slowing up ahead approaching Cactus. Inbound delays on the I-10 Papago. Well, they'll get you from 43rd Avenue into the Deck Park Tunnel. And watch for collisions, too, on the northbound Loop 303 at Waddell. And one now in Phoenix at 35th Avenue, just south of Buckeye. With East Side West Side traffic, I'm Joe Corral, News Talk 550, KFYI.
If you really want to support our troops, just contact the USO.
You can't believe how much they do for us.
To find out how you can help, visit us at USO.org. The USO, until everyone comes home.
From the AccuTemp Air Conditioning Weather Center, Fox 10's Corey McCluskey.
We are headed toward 107 degrees this afternoon. Typical for this time of the year, hazy sunshine and a slim chance for a shower scattered about the valley. Tonight, mid-80s under partly cloudy skies, and into your Tuesday we go, 106 degrees by the end of the day, and still a hazy one with a chance for those afternoon showers or thunderstorms.
Sunshine and 93 now, the dew point 59 degrees. The Supreme Court reverses a nominee's race decision. The latest at KFYI.com. I'm Joe Adams on 550 KFYI, the Valley's talk station.
When you want to know, you want to know now. That's why 550 KFYI and KFYI.com gives you news on the hour, on the half, and whenever it breaks.
There's a time for everyone. And while we may think it callous to talk about the end, it may indeed be one of the kindest acts we can ever commit. Let your family know long in advance how you want your funeral handled, so they won't have to carry the burden of doubt. Be kind. Talk about it.
What will you do? Call Mountain View Funeral Home and Cemetery, 480-832-2850.
Plummeting, the dollar falling, real estate, come on. I'm Danny D'Angelo, the king of laundry. I own several recession-proof, all-cash businesses that I paid nothing for. Those successful businesses are laundromats. And yes, I paid $0 for my stores. The business rights, equipment, customer base, everything down to the leftover soap, free. The laundry business requires owners to follow certain parameters. If and when they don't, they lose, and you win big. You win big because I'm going to teach you how. Through my proven system, you can begin your 100% cash business absolutely free. I've done it, I'm doing it today, and now I'm prepared to share my knowledge at kingoflaundry.com. Hurry, my next seminar is happening in Scottsdale on July 22nd. Space is limited. Go to kingoflaundry.com. That's where my step-by-step instruction begins, and more importantly, your previous job ends. KingofLaundry.com.
Magic in the Irvin Johnson took a lot of hard work, but the reward was worth it. Your hard work is rewarded at Rent-A-Center. Find the good stuff your family wants from Sony, Ashley, Whirlpool, and more. No credit checks, no credit needed. And it's all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Nice to know Rent-A-Center is working hard for you.
Money back guarantee must be exercised within the first week of possession. See rentacenter.com for complete details.
Might possibly be. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. The gateway to immortality.
We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.
I have a dream.
Houston, we have a problem.
My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I experimented with marijuana times 2 and didn't inhale.
I have a dream today.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. You may find yourself in another part of the world. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a low truck. You may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. You may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
Now, live from the Valley's Talk Station, News Talk 550 KFYI. It's the nearly famous Barry